Hi, my name is Tom Geiler, and welcome to this edition of OCTV. This month, we are highlighting an exhibit we have installed here in the first floor guest room hallway that's entitled James R. Colway from Central New York to the World. James Colway was an amazing painter who worked for Oneida Limited and painted wonderful landscape scenes, Americana scenes of Central New York. And these paintings line our first floor hallway, and we're going to walk you through that exhibit today. Jim Colway really had two incredible careers. During the day, Jim worked for Oneida Limited as an ad executive, and he really created a lot of the iconic ads and branding that made Oneida Limited so successful and so popular. So that was his day job. However, by night, he would retreat into his studio where he was just an accomplished painter, painting amazing scenes of Central New York from Knoxboro to Cazenovia to Oneida and beyond. And here is one of Jim's wonderful works here that's called Sentinels, and it's really representative of his style, which can be called Americana and somewhat impressionistic. And the way he worked was really interesting, actually. He would take tons of photographs of scenes around Central New York and sort of mix and match them. Like he might add a clothesline here or birds here, and making up these scenes that, while very representative of Central New York and very authentic to the landscape, were not totally real places necessarily. He worked mainly in watercolor, oil, and acrylic paints. And really was quite prolific in drawing scenes that celebrated a place he loved, which is upstate New York, but also places in Pennsylvania like Gettysburg and on Cape Cod. Jim loved to paint his hometown of Oneida, where he was born and raised. Indeed, he did a lot of drawing and sketching as a child and throughout his life that really drove his creative juices. And this is a lovely painting here entitled 1926, which is really a downtown scene of Oneida that, today they're still very familiar. Even though he painted local scenes, Jim was extremely nationally renowned and actually got the cover of Yankee magazine at one point, as well as was included in the Who's Who of American art. Jim's work became so popular and so renowned throughout the country that he was actually approached by the Department of State and a woman named Nancy Kefauver, who was starting a program called Art in the Embassies. And the idea was that during the Cold War in the middle of the 20th century, that American embassies would hang American art on their walls to inspire people around the world and see the fruits of democracy and capitalism, actually, that were going on in America. So Mrs. Kefauver approached Jim, who was initially reluctant to show his paintings in the embassy, but he finally agreed, and eventually a couple dozen of his paintings actually hung on embassy walls from Africa to Asia and beyond. Indeed, some of them were so popular that an ambassador actually wanted to buy this painting off of Jim called Weather Watch. Luckily for us, Jim didn't sell, and it ended up here at the Mansion House. And it took a community to bring these paintings back here to the Mansion House. Indeed, after their trip around the world, in many different embassies, they were acquired by Oneida Savings Bank's former president, Mike Callan. And in 2020, Rick Stickles, who's a longtime supporter of us, donated this collection of Jim Colway paintings to the Mansion House in honor of Mike Callan. So these things, these paintings, these amazing artworks would not be here without this community support that brought them here to the Mansion House. So we cannot thank them enough. Thank you so much for tuning into this edition of OCTV. We will see you next time.
Many thanks to our generous donors at Community Bank.